listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome back. We are so happy to have you here on USA Global TV. You are watching the Underdog Show. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and I am your host, executive producer, director, and broadcast engineer. My guest today is a very special person. He has his own story to share, but he's been helping people change their lives and realize that there is hope. Let us welcome Dr. Saf Buxy. Hi, doctor.
Hi, doctor. Doctor.
Two different kinds of doctors, but yes, doctors. It's so nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you, Dr. Jacalyn. I've waited so long to be on the show with you because I watch a lot of your work, and I know Ben as well, and Philip and Ian, and it's been a long time coming, but sometimes things happen after a certain period of time, and I'm just grateful. So much gratitude right now to be on your show. So thank you for having me.
I feel the same way towards you, and I'm really sorry that we kept you waiting. The other show ran over, but we will make sure that this show is all about you and getting the message out that you're helping so many people. You are a social behavioral coach. You are an addiction specialist, a speaker, a presenter, and an author. And we can see behind you, I'm going behind you, we can see behind you your book. So let's just start off with the name of your book.
It's called Out of the Madness, A Message of Hope. And it's a book that I guess it took me 3 years to write and get it published eventually. And it was a tough decision for me to write a book like this because it's basically my autobiography, and 90% of my life, if you like, is there. There's a 10% that's not there for personal reasons, but 90% of it is in there, and it's an interesting book. I've had a lot of great reviews, which I'm grateful for. I'm not an author by profession or a writer, but if there's one thing that I'm going to write about, it's myself, because I know myself best. And it's as the subtitle is A Message of Hope, that's the reason why I wrote this book. It was never going to be a money-making venture for me. It was more of, helping people and to give them that message of hope, because there is a way out of addiction. There is a way out of trauma. There is a way out of challenges. You can come through anything, and that book and my story confirms that. So that's in a nutshell the reason for me writing that book.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us. The fact that you didn't write it to make money, and that it's a very personal story. It's your story. So you have all these accolades and all these accomplishments and all these letters after your name, but you had a difficult journey that you had to go through in order to get to where you are today. So if you would share with us whatever it is you feel comfortable about that journey. We are on the Underdog Show, and of course our goal here is to inspire other people so they realize that they're not alone and that they can have success story like yours as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know what, Dr. Jacalyn, we've been going through some distressing times for many years, and especially the last 18 months with the pandemic and everything that's been, everything that's involved. But this is where I see a commonality with humanity. Whether we're talking about racism or gender inequality, homelessness, domestic violence, whatever we're talking about, ignoring mental health and addiction, we're talking about exploitation. We're talking about the fight against injustice, and I think as human beings we've become disconnected. I myself, I've caused chaos most of my life. Been very selfish, been hard to live with, hard to work with. But I've been, I'm very grateful today that so many people gave me this wonderful chance especially my children and my wife. And that's when humanity's at its best, when we support each other, and we avoid cancelling each other out for past mistakes, but instead help each other grow to redemption. And I truly believe, I mean, anecdotal experiences, yeah, they're respective, but I'm a firm believer that a lesson lived is a lesson learned. And through the chaos of my life, I've ascertained a certain comprehension of addiction and trauma. And that's because I've lived it. I'm by no means asserting that I'm an omnipotent being that can transform the indomitable. What I can say is that I'm someone who knows. I'm someone who's been there. And it took me a while to realize that I was an addict in the first place. I remember it was a 33-year addiction that I was involved with. And I mean, we could talk about the trauma and the abuse that I went through. And I was adopted at birth, which I didn't know until I was 18. But I'd like to start, and I'm going to say it very briefly because obviously a lot of it's in the book, of course, but I think it's important to recognize that addiction or taking a drink or drug or doing something, whether it be a behavior that it's detrimental to your life, it's not always a choice, where people perceive someone who's taken a drug or whatever to be a choice. I guess initially it is, but there's got to be something missing in someone's life for them to turn to a drink or drug, or them to turn to gambling, or them to be a sex addict, if you like, or be into pornography. There's got to be, addiction comes in many forms, of course.
And doctor,
yeah,
may I ask you a question about that?
Please, yeah.
So when you look back, you said your addiction was 33 years. Do you remember the first time you had a drink or a drug or whatever it was? Can you pinpoint that exact time in your life?
Yes, I can. I was 11 years old. It was my first year at boarding school, which was 6 years of hell, really, on a daily basis. I experienced abuse on a daily basis, physical, mental, emotional, racial, sexual at times, every day for 6 years, from the ages of 11 to 17. And it was near the end of my first year at boarding school where, of course, I was enduring different types of abuse. And I turned to alcohol. And I remember going into the town centre in a beautiful county called Surrey, a little village called Frensham. It was where the school was. And then the main part in Frensham was a place called Farnham. And myself and a couple of other lads, we went there and we got someone to get us alcohol. And it was my first drink, and it was a bottle of vodka. And I drank it neat. 4, 5, maybe 6 gulps. First drink ever. Did it. And I was unconscious for 9.5 hours. I was paralytic. It was my first of 2 stomach pumps. Nearly died. But when I took that drink, I felt alive. I felt something had happened to me. All the abuse that I'd gone through that year and was still going to go through, which I guess I knew was going to happen because I wasn't going to stop because I had a drink. But I felt free. I felt happy. I felt free, Dr. Jacalyn. You know, it's a difficult thing to put because it's the first time I'm away from my parents. I'm at boarding school. I've experienced all this in my first year, and then alcohol comes into my life, or I chose to have that drink. And when I drank that drink, I just felt, I felt beautiful. I'm not going to lie. It made me feel good. It made me feel wanted. It made me feel confident. And that was the first time I had a drink. And then it was a weekly occurrence thereafter. And then obviously that escalated.
Thank you for sharing that, doctor. And you mentioned that you felt better, you felt alive. Is that because the pain, all the pain that you've been feeling from all the abuse, you were able to just push it down?
I think, yes. I mean, at that time, and especially at that age, you don't think like that. Obviously, upon reflection, definitely. I I mean, it goes further because I don't remember, but when the other two lads took me back to school, the headmaster saw me. I vomited on the headmaster. It was a private school, so they didn't want to expel me because it's a few £1,000s less for another student. They kept it all in themselves. Of course, now I realise that was to save the school's reputation. But of course, the rest of the school learned about this. That Saf Buxy puked on the headmaster, was paralytic, and had his stomach pumped. And from that day on, I was like the class clown, and I was accepted in some kind of way, and I was looked upon in a different light than I was throughout the first year as someone who's getting bullied. But the bullying still continued. The bullying and the abuse still continued. But the alcohol got me through what I was enduring, and it got me ready for the following week. So I started drinking on a weekly basis from the age of 11. And it was vodka. It all started with vodka, and it made me feel alive. It made me, it's difficult. It was a connection that I had. I always say it's not why the addiction, or let's not call it addiction, let's call it bonding. Let's call it connection. And that's exactly what it was in my case. I was connecting with something that made me feel good, that made me feel wanted, that made me feel happy. And my choice at that time was alcohol. Would I have connected with that if I didn't go for the abuse? Probably not. I can't say, but probably not. This was, and people call it a coping mechanism, people call it getting away, people call it escape. I call it a fantastic, awesome strategy. When I'm with my clients, I call it, when a client comes to me, Dr. Jacalyn, with an addiction, the first question I ask them is, what's good about it? And they look at me and thinking, well, why is he asking? There's nothing good about it. I go, there must be something good about it that makes you do it. And then we explore together, and usually it's some kind of trauma, or usually it's some kind of escape, or some kind of, it makes me feel relaxed, it takes away the anxieties. I go, here you go. So that's what's good about it. For me, that was what's good about it. It doesn't make it right, but that was a strategy that I used at that time to get through what I was going through. So I call it a brilliant strategy, but it was a very harmful strategy for many years.
That's really interesting, the way you describe that from that perspective, and I appreciate that. So what happened next? Did things start to escalate and you realized that your life was unmanageable, or what happened?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's the first year of the 6 years, and the abuse still continued. As I say, there was sexual abuse at times, varying degrees, which no child should go through, but putting that to one side respectfully, the physical abuse was daily, the mental abuse was daily, the racial abuse was daily, and it was hard. But in the 80s, which is when, it was from 1983 this was happening, there was a massive code of silence, especially in the UK, and you don't say anything, you don't snitch, you don't sneak, you don't grass, whatever you want to call it, and you keep it to yourself. And I kept it all within. And the only way that I got any kind of relief from that pain, as Dr. Gabor Mate said, it's not why the addiction, it's why the pain, was by drinking. And that continued, and the abuse continued for 6 years. The alcohol intake continued for 6 years. And from weekly, it became 3 times a week. And then when I left boarding school, I went to college, and the alcohol went to another level. And then when I was 18, I found out that I was adopted by my adopted parents. They only adopted one child, which was me, so I was like an only child. And I found out, after going through all that abuse for 6 years and all that torture and all that, which is all in the book, I find out a year later from coming back home from boarding school that, son, you're adopted. And that, my whole world just came down. It was like my whole life was a lie. And inevitably the way I coped with hearing that news was drink. And I drank heavily and had my second stomach pump that night. So 2 stomach pumps in 7 years. And I tried some drugs that day, just dabbled in it. And it was, I remember that night, it was a very sad day, hearing that news. It's like I've come through the abuse, come home, and then I hear this, and it was like, phew, how do I do it? It was more traumatic for me to hear that, and this is no reflection on my adopted parents, two of the most wonderful people you could ever wish for. Love me dearly, even though when I reflect back, I realise why certain things were a bit different. Well, I didn't like them to start with. There was never a maternal or paternal love. Obviously, I've studied psychology since then, and I've realised that mentally it can affect, or it does affect a child, because of the initial bond that you have when you're in the womb. And my first abandonment was as soon as I was delivered, I was put into an incubator because I was 2.5 months premature, so I was never held in my birth mother's hands. And then I was in the incubator for a certain while, and then my second abandonment in quick succession was with the adoptive family, and there was no maternal or paternal bond from them. It wouldn't be. So all this was going on, and I hadn't even reached 3 months yet, or whatever it is. So I know all that plays a part as well. People tell me, is addiction genetic? Is it environmental? Is it habit? Is it trauma? And the answer is I don't know. I don't know what it is, but what I do know is that you can come out of it, because I did. But it's a combination of many things, of course it is, but you can come out of addiction, because I came out of a 33-year addiction, and it is possible.
Thank you, Doctor. I really appreciate your transparency and in sharing your story. We need to take a break, but when we come back, I would love to find out from you, and I always wonder this when people share their story, as you're looking back over the past, what feelings or emotions come up for you today when you look back at that? So if that's okay, we'll come back on that.
Of course. Look forward to it. Thank you.
Fantastic. And we're going to watch a music video. I love to do this every week. It's really inspirational. It's called Heroes in Disguise. It's by a UK singer. Her name is Ilo, and the record label is Licorice Dragon Records. And you can buy her music over on iTunes. So let's take a listen to Ilo, and then we will be back with the good doctor here and hear more of his story. Stay with us. Thank you.
Picture this, a life where you can leave your pain, a life where you can start again somehow. Picture this, a vision that can change a prayer, happy heart that's always there in the now. So don't be afraid of fear, even though as long as we're still here, we can be anything larger than life, rise up from the ground. We can fall down over 10,000 times, then turn it all right back around. We never imagine how good life can be, but inside you and me we can see past these ghosts in the mirror. We're heroes in disguise, heroes in disguise. Picture this, losing everything you got, never having had a lot, but holding on and on and on. Don't be afraid to dream, 'cause we are so much closer than it seems. We can be heroes in disguise. Heroes in disguise.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello and welcome back to USA Global TV, the Underdog Show. My guest today is Dr. Saf Buxy, and in the first segment of our show, he was very forthcoming and transparent in sharing his journey from 11 to 17 years of age. He was abused and he turned to vodka to try to deal with his situation, and as he describes, feel like he was alive. And then at the age of 18, he finds out that everything that he believed in about his family upbringing was not true. And he has suffered 33 years of addiction, but has turned his life around and is here today to share his story and help others. So welcome back, Doctor.
Thank you. Thanks, Doctor. Thank you.
Before the break, I had asked you if you would share with us telling your story today and thinking about that young boy, that young man, and the emotions that came up for you then. What's coming up for you today?
It's, I mean, these emotions and these thoughts and what I'm going to say now, it's after a lot of reflection, a lot of therapy, a lot of studying within the addiction field, within the field of human behavior, the field of psychology, and going to many support groups and basically learning and reading and being mentored by some of the biggest leaders in their field. And my response is this: is, you know, if you're looking for happiness without sadness, or if you're looking for health without disease, if you're looking for harmony and cooperation and peace without disharmony and conflict, if you're looking for heaven without a hell, what that means is that you're living in your lowest level of your animal brain, which is the amygdala, and you're looking for that dopamine fix. And people who do that, and some people call it the masses, they're vulnerable, and they're basically going to be sold a fantasy that there's pleasure without pain, there's happy without sad, there's positive without negative. But if you're striving, and these people are striving, if you're striving for a one-sided world, and many people are, and I call that a fantasy, the opposite is a nightmare. In Buddhism, they used to say the desire for that which is not available and the desire to avoid which is not avoidable is a source of human suffering. Just like the desire for the one-sided world. Now, you're not going to have fulfillment searching for a one-sided world. When you're living by your highest priority values and you embrace them successfully and you liberate them together, you will only then continue to live a life of inspiration and a life of fulfillment. The reason why I'm saying this is because it's taken me a while to look at both sides of everything. With everything that I went through, whether it's the abuse, whether it's learning about the adoption, or whether it's the adoption itself, and the consequence or the consequential actions I took through the addiction, where the addiction took me, in and out of the criminal justice system, in and out of hospital, causing chaos, causing destruction, causing mayhem everywhere, doing things uncharacteristically. The one thing that gets me through that today is acceptance. Acceptance is definitely the answer to all my problems today. If I'm disturbed, it's usually because I find some thing, some place, some situation, some person unacceptable to me. Until I can accept that thing, that place, that situation, that person, only then I can get serenity. Only then I can get peace. Only then I can get fulfillment and be inspired. Now, I'm not saying acceptance is agreeing with what happened or celebrating what happened, but it's accepting what happened. I always say to my clients that there's two things that hold us back as humanity: guilt and shame from the past and fear of the future. Let's live in the present and let's accept what's happened. Until we can move on from the past or accept what happened in the past or see how it served us today, we will get no serenity and we'll stay in that rut. Forget about the future because we don't know what's happening in the future. So why are we thinking about it? Let's stay in the present. So my message there is that there's always look at two sides. As I say, that there's no prey without a predator. There's no predator without a prey. There's no high without a low, no low without a high. If something good or something positive is happening in your life, look at the drawbacks. If something negative is happening in your life, look at the benefits. So someone might ask me, well, what are the benefits of the abuse that you went through? Well, there are many benefits, because unless I look at the benefits, we're not saying it's right, it's very wrong, but until I look at the benefits of what's happened to me, I will stay there and I will not move on. There's every chance that I will relapse, or every chance that I'll continue my addiction, every chance that it will be going downhill. The benefits, how it served me today, well, look how it served me today. It's given me the opportunity to help other people who have experienced or suffered the same way as I did, to help other people who may not have experienced or suffered what I did, but to give them a message of hope that you can come out of anything, absolutely anything. But let's look at it. How has it served me? It served me in studying. It's brought my relationships closer with my wife and my children. Okay, it's education. I mean, I'm doing a TED talk, and it's going to be from drug addict to doctorate. I would never have, in my wildest dreams, thought that I would be honoured with a doctorate in humane letters. Never thought that. I never thought that I'd be doing a master's in addiction psychology. I never thought that I'd be on a Sky TV show. And I'm not saying this out of ego. I'm saying this out of, there is hope. You can get out of anything. I never thought that I'd be on Sky TV, which is the biggest network in Europe, I think. With my own show, being a lead host of a program called Men's Talk, speaking globally, Dr. Jacalyn, writing a book. All this is just remarkable. I would never have thought that. That is how it served me today. That is how it served me. So when I say look at the benefits of a negative and bring it to an equilibrium, only then you can live a life of inspiration and fulfillment. And it works the other way. Right? When you see someone who's got a new job and they've got a promotion and they're all on this high and they're being governed by this dopamine rush, they want to stay there. Very rarely do they look at the possible drawbacks. And that's dangerous. It's dangerous.
Yes.
It's drawbacks. It's two sides to everything. Because if you don't look at the drawbacks and if and when it does eventually happen, it's going to hit you hard. If you look at it and bring it to an equilibrium and don't get governed by the dopamine rush, which many, many people do, both sides, until you do that, you will not live a life of inspiration. That's transformation right there.
Yes, sir, doctor. It definitely is. And I'm just loving everything that you're saying. We also have a couple of comments. And do you say her name, Gisela?
Ghazala Jabin.
Oh, Ghazala, nice to meet you. And then a follow-up comment is well said. So my question for you, doctor, is we looked so far very briefly at overcoming adversity. Obviously, we could talk for hours about what you went through and how you overcame it. And now I'd like to go into the hope and inspiration mode. So when was the moment, we talked about the moment you took your first drink, when was the moment you realized I'm going to do something to change the way I'm living, and what did you do?
It's a very interesting episode that happened, and I remember it clearly because I now call that my birthday date, my sobriety date. That I celebrate that as if it is my birthday. In fact, it's like I was not reborn; it was like I'm born. you know, and 11th of August, never forget it. But it was the 10th of August when I was working as an asset manager, and I'd gone to Berlin in Germany to look at some assets. And that night in Berlin, I inevitably got drunk and got arrested for drunken disorderly, and another police jail I've experienced globally, and this time it was in Berlin. And I remember sitting there, and my boss had seen all this happening. He was in the hotel room next to me, and I remember sitting in the police cell and looking around and thinking, wow, this is the nicest police cell I've ever been in. And I'm thinking, how can anyone be thinking like this? And the night before that, I transferred a substantial amount of money from my wife's account again. The week before that, I got arrested again in London or in the UK. So it was a constant thing. And but even then, I didn't really think I had a problem. I was in denial even up until then. Anyway, I finally got released, took the flight back. I inevitably got sacked from my position as an asset manager, literally on the flight back. And I came back home and I fell asleep, and I woke up, and my daughter, who didn't like me very much because of the disharmony and the chaos that I was causing the family, and I had done for many, many years, but especially that last year was, you know, I could name so many times where I was arrested, where I caused problems at home and did some really, really bad things. And she booked an appointment with the rehabilitation, alcohol, drug and services treatment place. And I went there, and reluctantly, but I went there. And I remember walking up those stairs with my wife. My brother-in-law was there, if I remember correctly, who'd visited us from abroad. And I remember walking up those stairs, and I had no desire to stop my lifestyle, no desire to stop drinking or taking drugs. I just did it to keep my family sweet, or as I say, flying the flag. And I went up those stairs and went into the room and met my key worker, Paula, again, a name that I can never forget. And I sat down, and that was when it happened. I don't know what happened. I just broke down for a good 15, 20 minutes, extremely tearful. And that it was then when I knew that this wasn't rock bottom, because I hit many rock bottoms. I was just physically, emotionally done. I was just done. I was done. I was exhausted. I was absolutely broken, and that was it. That was when I realized that, you know what, this can't go on anymore, and I haven't touched a drink or a drug or gambled, which is one of my other vices, which I haven't spoken about. I haven't touched a drink, taken a drug, or gambled since that day, August 11th. So that was when I realized I was done. And so it's funny, because on my way to the center, I had no idea that I would stop. That didn't even come to my mind. In fact, I remember when and I want to say this quickly, Dr. Jacalyn, and this is where addiction can take you. I remember when I overdosed quite badly, and I collapsed, and it was at a petrol station, gas station, forecourt, and I collapsed. And I remember waking up and people around me saying, "Stay down, the ambulance is coming." I took a cocktail of drugs, crystal meth, cocaine. I was obviously drinking loads of alcohol. I took amphetamine as well, and MDMA, and I was gone. And I remember waking up, seeing these people around me saying, "Stay down, the ambulance are coming." And I said, "What?" I got up, I got in my car, and I went straight to the dealer and got more drugs. That's the insanity. That's where it can take you. Then I didn't think I had a problem. On my way to this rehabilitation facility, I didn't think I had a problem. But when I got into that room, some people call it spiritual awakening. I don't know whatever you want to call it. All I know that was that moment, the first time in 33 years of addiction, that I believed that I was done, broken, exhausted, and I haven't looked back since, thankfully.
My gosh, I'm so glad that you went through that day. And I'm wondering, for people that don't know, we watch this on television, right? People, there's an intervention or something happens, and then they slowly start to process where they are and how they want to move forward. But with all the drugs in your system, isn't it hard for your body to not crave having those drugs and the alcohol?
Most definitely. And with regards to alcohol in particular, it's the only drug, believe it or not, it's the only drug that you can die from withdrawals. So someone who's a daily drinker, which I wasn't a daily drinker, and they were drinking half a bottle, one bottle a day, and my clients do, I advise for them not to just stop, because if they stop, they can go into withdrawals. If they go into withdrawals, that could get into seizures and fits, and that can be fatal. They can die. So we ask them to reduce. And if you do experience withdrawals, we ask them to have a drink. I ask them to have a drink or call the ambulance, because that could save their life. My story was, I was more of a binge drinker, but when I drank heavily. So I didn't per se go through, I went through withdrawals, but not the alcohol withdrawals. I went through withdrawals more so from the cocaine and the crystal meth. And you can't actually die from that, but it's very, 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 very uncomfortable. The body, in terms of crystal meth withdrawals, the body cramps up. And you can't move, and it's not nice at all. But once I got through that stage, and the rehabilitation has started, and the therapy has started, and the fellowships, and I've got to big up the fellowships. They were a massive part of my early recovery. And then I volunteered in the services, and then I studied and read and trained and started working in the prison service with other addicts who were offenders, and I tried to help them through their addiction. And I worked in the community, and then things just happened, and I studied more and trained more and learned more about addiction and trauma and mental health and human behavior and social behavior. And I brought it all together, Dr. Jacalyn, I brought it all together, and I've now created my own process called the Buxy Recovery Process, and that is what I use with my clients, and that is what I talk about. And it's a combination of everything that I've learned and my own experience, not just personal, but professional, academic, and I brought it all together, and that is what I use with my clients.
Congratulations. What an incredible story. I am so proud of you and so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn.
So when we look at, there's all kinds of addictions, right? Are there certain addictions that your process is better for helping people, or can you help people regardless of what their addiction is?
Yeah, I mean, my process is it can help anyone with addiction, but it's not just for addiction. It's for people. It's more of a self-empowerment process as well, because a lot of people who experience addiction, but even people who don't experience addiction, there's people out there who have low self-worth, low self-esteem, no drive in life, who've experienced some kind of trauma but not necessarily have turned to addiction, people who have anxiety, people who are in depression. My process helps everyone, absolutely everyone. Even if you're feeling a bit low, come to me and I can help you. I don't guarantee I can cure you, but what I can guarantee is that I'll change your life forever, and you'll learn something new. And that is the beautiful thing about my process, the Buxy Recovery Process. It's something that it's different. I don't think there's a process like that out there. There are processes and modalities and models that are similar, who have a little bit of everything, but I have absolutely everything in my process. And I am actually currently writing another book, which is just dedicated to my process, because I feel that it's a massive tool that people can use, whatever their issue is. But yes, addiction obviously is my speciality for many reasons, but so is trauma and so is mental health. And I truly believe that this process can help people no matter what you're going through or what you've been through, because there is a way out. I'm living proof that I've come out of it. Not to be complacent, because it's a challenge, it's a battle, it's a program every day that I'm working, and I work with my clients and I work with people around me, which of course also helps me in turn. But my ultimate goal now is to help as many people as I can in any way which I can. And, I'm in the process of opening up a new charity, which of course is something that's very close to my heart, which mainly helps children around the world, especially people in countries where they're experiencing war, and helping orphanages and orphans and education. There's so many things that I want to do out there in the world. But of course, my main goal at the moment is helping people through addiction, through trauma and mental health. So yeah, the answer to your question is the process helps many people. It can help everyone. Really, it's something that works. But of course, you have to work at it. It won't just work just like that.
Brilliant. You started at the beginning of the show talking about the duality of positive, negative, heaven, hell, good, bad. So when someone is looking to change their life, whether it's because they have an addiction or they're just not in the place that they want to be, and you can envision the positives, you can envision how your life could be. What about some of the negatives so in other words, the realism, when you say to yourself, okay, if you're going to make a change, these things are going to happen, like you have to do the work. What are some of the other bad things that people might perceive as being bad in order to change that they have to eliminate?
Of course, I mean, the biggest thing I say is no matter, just because you're trying to change and trying to transform and trying to better yourself in a way, or trying to get away from something, because it's not always about learning. Sometimes it's about unlearning. Life will still be life. I'm a strong believer that we have to try and live life on life's terms, live life the way it is, because people are still going to die around us. We're still going to have losses. We're still going to have people trying to fight with us. We're still going to have disappointments in our lives. We're still going to have things that haven't gone accordingly to plan. These things will still happen. We're still going to have arguments with our partners, our children. Road rage may happen. We may not get a job. We may get fired from a job. It's what we do. It's what we do when this happens. Where previously I would have turned to a drink or drug, because that's the only way I knew how to survive, to escape, as a coping mechanism, or as I call it, a fantastic, awesome strategy. Where I've learned that from TJ Woodward from Conscious Recovery, a very good friend of mine, who calls it a brilliant strategy. I've taken it the next step by calling it awesome. Hope he doesn't mind. So always look at two sides of everything, because if something bad's happening in your life, let's look at the positives of what's going on, the benefits of what's going on. There's so many people out there, Dr. Jacalyn, and who have made very, very good money out of it and very successful careers out of it. And I'm talking in particular motivational speakers, and I think they're fantastic. They motivate and they really, really inspire people, and that's fantastic. But very rarely do I hear people talk about the negative side of things. And it's like people try and run away from that. It's like people try to ignore that. They don't acknowledge that. I'm someone who acknowledges both sides, because I think it's important too, because I've had both sides. Definitely had negatives, and I'm definitely having a positive lifestyle right now. And I'm having a positive lifestyle because I've acknowledged the benefits of my negatives. And anything that's good going on, I'm also acknowledging the drawbacks of the benefits, because you can't be complacent. Complacency does kill, whether it's an addiction, whether it's in life, whether it's your mindset, full stop. You have to keep on working. You have to keep on being alert. You have to keep on being focused with a purpose in life, with a purpose within yourself. And it's important that it comes intrinsically, not extrinsically. If you could come from within, because if I need to go to a motivational speaker for myself to be motivated, it means it's something external. It's an external factor that's helping me through. And yes, that's great, but it's not coming from within. It may do eventually, which is beautiful. But if it can come from within, there's every chance that you'll live a life of inspiration. There's every chance that you'll live a life of fulfillment. It's all about within and intrinsically, which is important. If we're doing it because for someone else, or if we're living up to someone else's values, and values is a massive, massive part of my work, living by highest priority values. If we live up to someone else's values, then there's a chance that we might get resentful. There's a chance that we might get sad. We may not want to do it. Dr. Jacalyn never put anyone in a pedestal. and never put anyone in a pit. Put them in your heart. Put them in your heart. And once you put them in your heart, and live by your own values, because only then you'll be inspired to do what you want to do. If you start living in other people's values, then you're living a lie, really. Some people do things because to try and avoid punishment or for a reward, but that's not intrinsic motivation. That's an external factor, is the reason why we're doing it. If we do it because it genuinely comes from within, if it genuinely comes intrinsically, only then we can be inspired in life.
Well said. Thank you very much. Do you work with people all over the world, regardless of where they are?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the pandemic, and again, it goes back to the negative and the positive. I mean, the pandemic has been very bad for many people, but it served me extremely well. I mean, I've experienced some very serious and close deaths, which has been very hard for me, especially this year. But the benefit of the pandemic is it's served me well, and it's given me the chance to do interviews on this wonderful platform, this wonderful stage, which is yours, which may never have happened in the past. It's given me the opportunity to work with clients in Australia, in the USA, in South Africa, in Turkey, to mention a few countries, of course, in the UK, even when I can't go out, when there was a lockdown, we couldn't go out. It's beautiful. So yeah, so globally, it's been fantastic. Of course, with the technology we have, I work with people anywhere in the world. So yeah, that's the answer to that question is yes.
That's wonderful. And as we come to the end of our show, what does it look like to work with you, and how does someone actually reach out to do that?
Yeah, there's many ways to reach out. I guess the best way is to go to my website, which is it's actually it's on the banner below. It's the www.safbuxy.com, which is my name, and all the details are there. There's a Calendly link there. You can book an appointment, a free consultation. We can have a chat and see if we can work with each other and see if I can help you and see if I can be of value to you. Of course, I'm very active on social media, or on the Facebooks and the LinkedIns and the Instagram. So please, Google me or Google my name, and you'll see a few things I've done. I'm on a few shows as well, and I'm always around, doing different things. I'm going to a wonderful psychiatry conference in Paris on November the 1st. So you're welcome to come and see me there. It's going to be amazing leaders in psychology who are going to be there. I feel very humbled to be amongst these wonderful people. So yeah, the best way to find me is through my website, but most social media, type my name in and I should come up. And what you'll get with me is, we'll talk. We'll have a chat initially. I'll hear you, and I will also then respond to what you've said and how I can help you. If I believe that you're not ready, if I believe that you should maybe try something else before we come to me, because usually the people who come to me are people who've tried everything else and as a last resort, or people who've tried something and they're doing really well, but they want to go to the next level. They're mainly my clients, but I do see some people, as a first resort, but only if I feel that it's going to be ready, because I don't want to waste anyone's time, money, or effort or energy. But I do want to help people as much as I can. So what have you got to lose? Give me a call, book an appointment with me on the website or on a Calendly link on any of the social medias, and we'll have a chat, and hopefully you'll get some value of it. Even if we don't work together, I'll always be there to advise you and help you as much as I can. So yeah, www.safbuxy.com.
Thank you, Doctor. And one more question is, if somebody is out there watching or listening and they're thinking, I'd really like to reach out, but I'm really nervous, I'm afraid, I feel guilty, I feel bad, I don't know what to do. What would you say to them?
I would say to them, I totally understand that. I totally understand that. All I can promise you is I've been there. I know what it's like. I know how difficult and how frightening it can be to ask for help. I know it's probably one of the hardest things you might ever do, but I can assure you, if you can do it with me, because I know, And it could be the best thing you've ever done, because that could change your life forever, and it could save your life as well. So try and give it a go. Give it a go. What have you got to lose? And if you want to do a Zoom call and you don't want to show your face, that's completely fine as well. If you want me to give you my number, I'll give you my number and we can chat on the phone. Whatever's comfortable for you, I will do what I can to try and accommodate you, just so you can give it a chance and hopefully have a life of inspiration thereafter.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. That is so wonderful. So there's no reason not to reach out. Please do. And if you're listening on the radio, Business Talk Radio, Dr. Buxy's website is www.safbuxy.com. If you're joining our show late, please go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV, and you can watch the show from the very beginning. And please do reach out to Dr. Saf Buxy, because he's been there. He's lived through it, and he understands what you're going through, and there is hope.
Thank you. Most definitely. I'm so grateful to be on the show. I really am, Dr. Jacalyn. I really am. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really grateful that you're here as well. And, I didn't ask you to do this, but if you're open to it, I'll take us to a quick break. I was wondering if you might want to read from your book.
I can do, yeah.
Okay, cool. Perfect. I will take us to a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we will hear from you directly, your words about some of your experience.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. We'll be right back.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
Stations are tuned in too.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello and welcome back to USA Global TV and Business Talk Radio. You're watching The Underdog Show, and my guest is Dr. Saf Buxy, and I've asked him if he would like to read something from his book, which is a story that is very personal to him. And I'm going to spotlight you and your book, Out of the Madness.
Thank you. Yeah, Out of the Madness. I mean, there's so much to read, and I just opened this page. I thought the first page I'll open, I'll read it, and this particular chapter is called Car Wars, and I was running a car wash business, but I was dealing drugs from there, in fact. And I'll read the first page, and the name of my car wash was called Low Dosh Car Wash, and I'll read it. It's called Car Wash, Chapter 8. Call it delusional, but there was a time when I imagined that the Low Dosh Car Wash might become Maidstone's equivalent to Bada Bing Club. However, instead it evolved into something more like the A1 car wash from Breaking Bad, albeit on a drastically reduced scale. To anyone who passed it, it wouldn't have looked like anything other than a mundane backstreet car cleaning operation. But as far as I was concerned, it was the foundation stone of my business empire. The idea came to me when I was getting my own car cleaned. At the time, I was driving a massive Jeep Grand Cherokee with huge bass speakers in the back that would pump out gangster rap like Tupac and Biggie Smalls and Snoop Dogg at a decibel level that the entire world could hear, whether they wanted to or not. I used to go to a car wash in Strood, which is a place in England, and when I saw how busy it was, I thought to myself, I'd fancy a piece of this. Just like a hotel or something. There was this African guy who was the front man there, and it wasn't long before I stalked him and took him with me. On one occasion, I went to the main road and I saw my sign. We had a sign that directed people to the car wash. I saw my sign had been removed and flattened. As it was hard, water-filled base, there was no way that it could have blown away. However, I thought that it might just have been due to either some casual vandalism or perhaps a student prank. So I put it back into place. Then I went again, and I happened to see two guys moving it. I followed them until I saw them walk into another car wash up the road, at that point I realized what was going on. The rival car wash was run by members of local Albanians, the Albanian community, who had earned a certain reputation. Albania was and still is one of the most deprived countries in Europe, and so people would emerged from that chaos carrying a certain catch-it about themselves. If there was one thing that everyone knew, was that you did not bleep with the Albanians. I, on the other hand, didn't have many options. While I might have been living in an almost permanent drug-induced haze, I was still astute enough to know that calling the police was neither a smart idea nor an option. I think that they believed that I was a bigger villain than I actually was. So needless to say, they weren't going to be interested in helping me. However, for my part, I thought I was getting away with something, and doing anything that would unnecessarily draw attention to myself didn't seem like it would be a great idea. So instead, I made alternative arrangements and rang a couple of people whom I knew locally, and within an hour they assembled a multinational coalition of mixed-race, hard cases, hard-hitting Eastern Europeans and ex-cons, of whom there were plenty to call on, that Maidstone is home to one of Her Majesty's most popular residential franchises. At that time, our weapon of choice was the baseball bat, which could be purchased from all good sports shops as well as the bigger, less reputable chains, despite the fact that, in terms of participation, baseball ranked lower than either badminton or tiddlywinks. The good news was that there was no restrictions on ownership. I went into the car wash. Hey, Vladimir, nice to see you again. How can I help? 24 baseball bats, please. Oh, you're starting a team? No, I practice in Moat Park with friends. And I carry on saying, I don't want to spoil the story, but I carry on. The last paragraph I'm going to read is, in a move that was only way meant to give them a warning, we destroyed the rival car wash. While I'm not proud of it now, that was the kind of life that I was in. You mess with my business, I mess with yours. I didn't like doing it, but I felt that I had to. And to some extent, it paid off. So that's...
Wow. Wow.
That's where the addiction and that lifestyle took me. Of course, there are other stories within the book that are probably more harrowing and more like wow. But if I may, I'd like to read a couple of testimonials just to let you know what the book is.
Sure.
Everyone faces problems in their life, but most people are not like Saf Buxy, a man who successfully pushed through his self-sabotaging addictions and madness to using his past to serve humanity in a remarkable way. Saf Buxy shares his challenging life story and insights into life lessons in a way that make you feel that you are witnessing it firsthand. His story vividly depicts experiences of racism and suffering in London's East End in the 1970s. This book is a testimony of true transformation to remarkable service for humanity through Saf Buxy's devoted support for those seeking to make themselves whole again, no matter how traumatic their circumstances. Reading this book will transform your life. That's just one testimonial from a chap called Daniel Gutierrez. But yeah.
That's very moving. Thank you. Before you put the book away, I just wanted to ask you, can you tell us a little bit about the cover?
Yeah, the cover was, it took me a lot of covers to get through this. And it was designed by a very good friend of mine, Eugene. It's a shout out to Eugene. And basically, the cover was designed last year. In fact, it was probably the last thing that we did. And we came up with this idea because we were in lockdown, and the title of the book is Out of the Madness. And I wanted to show someone that not so much that there's light at the end of the tunnel, but even though that's what it is showing, but it's showing that you can go through any street, any alley, any road, any journey, and you can get to the end of it, no matter what challenges, what obstacles, what may be there, and actually come out of the madness. And that's the thinking behind this cover. And as you can see, there's drain holes all the way there, like there was in my life. I was falling down drains all the time, but you can pick yourself back up and carry on walking, and you can get out of the madness. And this book is a message of hope. And just whilst I'm on here as well, another good friend of mine, Sal, she actually drew this for me, which is basically me, and it's House of Madness, and the crystals that you've got coming off half of my face is basically resembles a lot of things, but it resembles the addiction that I had to crystal meth. And also you can see by the shirt is very cleverly designed and very cellularly and cleverly designed as atoms and so forth. So that's the story behind the cover. And
I love it. And I also like the titles of your chapters.
Yeah, they're pretty decent. The titles. I mean, just to go through the titles. The first one's a face for the deodorant, which is about my growing up in the East End of London, and then you got Pierpont, which is a school where a lot of abuse happened. CCF was the army. On the outside, LA. I was in LA for a year and a half, living in Los Angeles, which is an experience that was wild. From Hollywood to Oakwood. So Oakwood is a place in England, and love and marriage, car wars. You look like a drug addict, lashings, flatlining, addicted to recovery, filling in the blanks, survive, overcome, and thrive, and then connecting with me. So it's I think we get value of it. Yeah, get it, guys.
Absolutely. Where can people pick up a copy of your book?
You can get it from my website or go on Amazon. But there's a link if you go into the book section on my website, safbuxy.com, and click the link. There's an American link, there's a UK link, and it'll take you straight to Amazon, and you can purchase it. Yeah.
Dr. Buxy, it's been such a pleasure having you, and I'd really like to have you on some of our other shows as well, because I think you have a really important message to share. So I'll reach out to you and see if we can arrange that.
I can't wait, Dr. Jacalyn. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. And that conference you're going to in Paris sounds very interesting as well. Yeah,
definitely. It's going to be amazing. I can tell you.
Do you want to give any information for people if they are interested in meeting you there?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the details in terms of the venues hasn't been decided, but it's again, if you go on my website and stuff, it's all there. But it's a psychiatry conference in Paris with some amazing people, and obviously I'm going to be focusing on talking about addiction and trauma. But there's people from all over the world. It's one of the biggest psychiatry conferences that they hold on a yearly basis, and this year it's in Paris on November the 1st. But there'll be more information on my Facebook, and it will be on the website as well. We don't know the venue yet, but I know it's in Paris. So.
All right. Who doesn't want to go to Paris? Come on. All right. Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and I look forward to following your work and having you back.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jacalyn. It's been my honor, my pleasure, and very humbled to be on your show. Thank you.
Thank you. See you again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We've got the business talk show coming up right after this with my co-host Al Cini, and our guest is Christopher Evans. So please do stay where you are. We will be back in 25 minutes for the business talk show. Thank you again, Dr. Buxy. It's great seeing you. And please do go to his website, www.safbuxy.com. You can pick up a copy of his book. You can find out how to contact him and how you can change your life. We'll see you later.